If you could make more money not working than actually going to your job, wouldn't you do that? Kind of seems like a no-brainer. Well, in Oregon and a lot of other states, a lot of people are realizing that's their reality.
In the absence of testing and making less money, why would you go to work?
And some businesses are finding out their employees don't actually want to come back. And just because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean that people are having fewer heart attacks. So why are emergency rooms seeing less and less people having emergencies until it's too late?
We're seeing people refusing to come to the ER even though they're having crushing chest pain or numbness or headaches or stroke-like symptoms.
And guess what? It's Friday. We made it yet another week. Here's the story.
Hey, hi everybody. So we have been under this stay-at-home order now for 1 month and 1 day, which, man, I find that so hard to believe. Then again, they gave me my own TV show, so 2020 is not really making any sense at all at this point. Welcome to the story. And we want to hear from you. And as you'll see throughout the show, we are definitely listening. So send us your thoughts and your questions by email, Facebook, Instagram, or use Twitter and the hashtag HeyDan. Let's start tonight by talking about the big debate, shall we? Should we keep staying at home or should we open back up as people continue to struggle with unemployment and our economy tanks? You know, we've seen the protests around the country and here in Oregon, people demanding that the shutdown be lifted. They want to go back to work. They don't want to lose their businesses. And then, of course, we got the other people. You know, the people really preaching Oregon's Stay Home, Save Lives slogan. Usually with stuff like this, it's, left versus right, east versus west, that kind of thing, right? But this isn't like that. This is different. A Portland-based research group, DHM Research, did a survey and released the results this week. They talked to 900 Oregonians all over the state. They found that 82% of them support the stay-at-home order. But here's what I think is really interesting. It doesn't seem to matter what your political opinions are. Or really where you live in the state. 95% of Democrats support this, but so does 72% of Republicans. About 85% of people in the metro area and Willamette Valley support it. As for the rest of the state, 75% of people are behind it. So this is just all something I think that you should, keep in mind next time you hear about a protest or you see people fighting in the comments section of a Facebook page. That said, the fear of getting sick isn't the only thing that's keeping people from going back to work. And that brings us to our big story tonight. It has to do with this strange little situation we discovered about unemployment and how it's motivating some people to stay home rather than to go back to work. I know that sounds backwards, right? Well, Robbie emailed me saying, I know at least 4 people who are making more collecting unemployment than they do when they work. They have the option to work because their work is not shut down and they use coronavirus as a cover to collect easy money. What's being done about closing these loopholes? Robbie is right. There are a lot of people actually making more on unemployment than they would if they were still working. And it's because of that $600 extra a week that everyone's getting now from the federal government. Let's take a look at what the New York Times is calling the unemployment booster shot. They looked at data from the Labor Department. They found that 46% of workers in Oregon make more on unemployment right now than they do in their jobs. 46%. For Washington, it's 38%. And this is also true in more than half of the states in the U.S. People are getting more money not to work. Oregon and Washington already have some of the highest minimum unemployment benefits in the country. It's $151 a week in Oregon and $188 in Washington. Then you add that extra $600 a week on top of that. We talked to the owner of a big restaurant group here in Portland who's dealing with this problem right now. His employees are making more while being laid off, so they don't want to come back to work. Kurt Huffman, the owner of Chef's Stable, wrote an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal this week, saying his restaurants won't be able to fully reopen until August when that extra $600 a week goes away. His group has more than 20 restaurants under their belt. When they shut down, they had to lay off most of their workers, but lately they've seen more takeout business than they expected, so they tried to start hiring some people back. But almost everyone has said no, because they'd be taking a pay cut by going back to work.
Last week, we started calling people to see if we could get them to come in for 25, 35-hour a week shifts, and that happened to happen the same week that they started receiving the $600 supplemental amount from the federal government on top of their unemployment. And we just noticed that we had people that weren't interested, and very quickly it started making sense why. We're not blaming. I love my employees. These guys, especially line cooks, those guys, that's what I did my first 8 years professionally.
All right, here's the math. Huffman says line cooks in his restaurants, they make a minimum of $15 an hour. If you include tips, that works out to be about $640 a week. In Oregon, you get 1.25% of your annual salary. So that works out to $416 for a line cook making minimum wage every week. When you add the extra $600 to that, they're now making more than $1,000 a week. That's an extra $376 for every week that they don't go back to work. And yeah, I guess when you're thinking of just simply dollars and cents, that's a better deal. And you heard Huffman, he actually doesn't blame them. But let's go back to Robbie's question. Are people allowed to still collect unemployment if they're offered their job back and turn it down? Well, according to the state, no. Not unless they have a legitimate reason why they can't return to work. And that includes being sick with COVID-19, being under a mandatory quarantine, caring for a sick family member, or basically getting a doctor's note saying it would be better if you stayed home. The Employment Department told us if someone chooses to stay home from work after they've been called back, and none of the situations where they can continue to claim benefits apply to them, they would not be considered eligible for unemployment benefits. They also say employers can report if their workers don't want to come back because they're getting a better deal on unemployment. And if that's true, the worker would have to pay back all their benefits and might face other penalties or prosecution. Now, let's talk about people who don't want to go back to work for a different reason. Governor Kate Brown is letting non-urgent health care procedures start up again next week, like dental offices, for instance. But some people are afraid to go back. They don't want to be that close to people's mouths while this virus is still going around. Pat Doris talked to one of them.
Oregon has roughly 4,000 dentists, many with hygienists and office staff, and few, if any, have worked in weeks. This is video we shot before the COVID-19 shutdown. Today, some are speaking out, worried it's too soon to go back in the time of COVID-19. Emily Robertson works in the front office of a dental clinic in Portland.
I feel like this is worse than every other virus. You know, it's worse than the flu. It lives in your droplets, and using a high-speed, ultrasonic on your teeth, that flings all kinds of debris everywhere, and you can only wipe down so many surfaces.
She was the only one brave enough to talk on camera, but I've heard from several hygienists and others today who share that exact concern. The president of the Oregon Dental Association, Dr. Barry Taylor, said he also expects patients to be a bit worried.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a certain element of caution. I think the good thing is that dentists have a very long history of always being excellent with their infection control, and a long history of that, for the past decades. So we want to establish that they're safe to come back, and we're going to, do everything we can with what's available to provide the highest level of infection control.
The dental clinics are not able to open until May 1st, and there are sure to be many discussions over the next week on how to do that safely, or whether it can be done safely. Emily Robertson said she tried to order masks for her office and found her supplier was out. She wonders how dentists will get enough protective gear.
Are we going to use the same mask on every patient? Are we going to be able to use disposable gowns? I mean, I usually don't wear anything up at the front. So am I going to be putting a mask on and gloves on and a gown on for those people who are coming up and being in close contact with me?
Dr. Taylor agrees getting enough PPE could be a challenge.
That is certainly one of the challenges of going back, and that may be one thing that slows us down a little bit from getting back to full capacity. But that's all right. I think most dentists are wanting to kind of start cautiously, slowly ramping up as they adapt to some of the new procedures they're going to be doing in their office to maintain social distancing.
Pat Doris, KGW News.
We've been focusing a lot of our coverage on more rural parts of Oregon lately, but not every night, not last night. And Jeffrey Carlson apparently wants more. He wrote, "Why the paucity of hard-hitting stories? Why the topical vacuity of your running stories?" Yeah, I know, I had to Google those words too. They're not compliments. He says, 3 stories and counting on some Michael Jordan retrospective on ESPN and how the Blazers lost out on a phenomenal player. Who cares? That, sir, is subjective, but okay. He goes on, "Our governor mandates statewide stay-at-home rules with equal applicability to the populated Portland metro area and our sparsely populated Prineville, Rome, LeGrand, and you do one story, no follow-up, no hard questioning the governor or health experts, nothing. You don't question a thing. Your sports coat isn't too small, Dan. it's empty. First of all, that's a good burn. All right, I can deal with that. I'll take it right here. Good burn, real, recognize real. What he's referring to, though, is Kyle Aboshi's story from last Thursday, where we explained the plight of rural Oregon and heard from struggling business owners in Prineville, in a county that only has one confirmed case of COVID-19, but remains locked down just like everyone else. We covered that, but it looks like Jeff missed some of our other coverage, and that's okay. We don't expect you to watch every single thing we do, as I think you understand that we can't repeat ourselves every single night. But this week, we did explain that Republican lawmakers like Herman Bertschuger, they've been pressuring Governor Brown daily to stop her one-size-fits-all approach, and that a spokesperson for the governor said that the state will likely open county by county or by region once the criteria for reopening is met. Jeff's email continues. Why, though, must rural Oregon labor under the stay-at-home restrictive rules of Portland's Tri-County area? They don't struggle with the same population density. They inherently social distance and are smart enough to know to do so if shopping. Why not question the governor's wisdom of her one-size-fits-all approach? Why no three-part series of their plight? Why no Laurel Porter in-depth one-on-one? You honestly think those mom and pops in rural Oregon are going to survive under this continued burden? Get real. I will say, all right, we cover the hardship from this virus every single night. And not just here on the story, okay? KGW as a whole has done countless stories in rural Oregon and everywhere around the state. Now, as far as being under the same umbrella of rules, everybody, well, health experts have said they think that rural areas needed to be locked down, just like everybody else, before the expected spike, because even rural areas have grocery stores and movie theaters and restaurants where this virus can spread. The email ends with, "Glad you still have a job, Dan." What about your thousands of viewers east of the Cascades, the farmers, ranchers, loggers, the restaurateurs, the hardware and grocery store owners and employees? What about the barbers and hair salons? What's going to be left of their jobs? I'm sorry for the abruptness of this email, but I am truly worried about our rural communities and KGW's apparent ongoing disinterest in their plight. Can I just say, to kind of wrap this up, that you don't need to apologize? That I understand, that I'm glad that I have a job, but I have family members who don't, people who I love. I don't take this position for granted at all. None of the people who work on the story do. We work hard every single night to earn your respect by reading every single email like they come in from a friend, so you know we're anything but disinterested.
We know we're trying to keep hospitals from being overwhelmed, but if you're having an actual emergency, by all means, please go to the hospital, because it looks like a lot of people aren't. And just how many coronavirus cases would we have in Oregon if people weren't staying home? Someone's done the numbers, and apparently it's thousands and thousands more. When the story continues.
Hey, welcome back. We want to take a little bit of time right now to, frankly, help doctors and hospitals get the word out about this dangerous trend that they're seeing during this pandemic. People who need emergency care for serious health issues, things not related to coronavirus, and they're putting off going to the ER for it. They're doing this because they're afraid that going to the hospital will put them at risk of getting the virus. Earlier tonight, I talked with Maggie Vespa about it.
Okay, Maggie, you've been looking into this for us, and this is something happening all over the country.
Yeah, this is happening in hospitals nationwide, and people actually, might think that we're kind of an exception to this because we're not a hotspot. We're not New York and we're not Seattle, but our hospitals are seeing this too. In fact, we checked with hospitals across Portland and Vancouver, and they're seeing anywhere from a 20% drop of visits in their ERs to a 50% drop. And actually the 50% drop came from Peace Health Southwest Medical Center in Vancouver. And I mean, obviously that's huge.
What are we talking about here? Are we talking about sprained ankles, or are we talking about things that are way more serious and life-threatening?
And we're talking about life-threatening stuff like heart attacks and strokes are the two that doctors highlighted in their news releases and in their interviews. And they say they know, sadly, people are just suffering in silence at home. They're experiencing frightening symptoms, but they're staying home. And then some of them are coming in later when the symptoms get all the more dire or actually painful, or they're being brought in by family members. In fact, I want to play a part of an interview now that I did with the Director of Emergency Services for Legacy Health. Take a look.
We've had people who've obviously had very significant strokes, very, very obvious symptoms, who only came in days later because then they had a fall and broken arm because part of their body wasn't working right because of the stroke.
Yeah, crazy to hear that. So doctors are doing a couple of things here. First, they're highlighting symptoms that they say should not be ignored. And for strokes, that's things like facial drooping, arm weakness, difficulty speaking or slurred speech. And then for heart attacks, they're highlighting pain or discomfort in your chest, arms, or upper body, shortness of breath, cold sweat, nausea, or lightheadedness. If you're experiencing those symptoms, they say definitely call 911. And then finally, Dan, they're also kind of driving home their point that they say local ERs are safe. When you show up, if you go to one, they say you will be given a mask, you'll have your temperature taken, and then they say any patients with a cough or other classic symptoms of coronavirus are then quarantined and kept isolated while they're evaluated and treated. So they're saying ERs are safe. Don't be afraid of going to one. And they say definitely do not avoid getting treatment if you're experiencing kind of one of these common emergencies. There's no time to waste.
Great information there, Maggie. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So the Oregon Health Authority is now saying social distancing has stopped 70,000 people in Oregon from getting COVID-19. That's amazing news. It's great work. We wanted to know, though, how exactly did they come up with that number? Kristen Severance has the answer.
Dr. Dean Seidlinger, Oregon's state health officer, told us these numbers last night on our KGW Q&A show at 7. They definitely made me pause. So they believe 8,400 people have or had COVID-19 in Oregon, even though only 2,100 have been diagnosed. And they say social distancing basically stopped 70,000 people from getting COVID-19 because of when Oregon started the ban on large groups, when schools were closed, and when the stay-at-home order was put into place. So this information came from the Institute for Disease Modeling in Bellevue, Washington. Our big question, how did they come up with this? Well, according to the report, they used available data from April 20th on confirmed positive diagnoses, number of tests completed, hospitalizations, ICU admittance, and deaths for Oregon. And they used all that information and put it into a COVID-19 model, which is then used for projecting future trends. The report really commends Oregon for its work so far, pointing to things like the donation of 140 ventilators to New York as further proof we were prepared. You can read the entire report on KGW.com. If you have more questions, hit us up, let us know, use the hashtag HeyDan.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt Safino, and first of all, let me say happy Arbor Day to you. It's a day when we celebrate trees, hopefully plant trees and all of that. But I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. Of course, Oregon is the beaver state, but our neighbors to the north in Washington, in King County specifically, are thinking that they can use beavers to help adapt to climate change. It's pretty interesting story here too. So I'm going to show you a really cute picture of some beavers right now. This is from the National Park Service, so you can see that. But here's how this is going to work. In fact, I'm going to tell you about the role beavers have played on our landscape by going back to a story I did last summer on my Eastern Oregon road trip. I was on Sylvie's Ranch, and I was talking to the manager there, and he told me a really interesting fact about how beavers used to be on the landscape and how it's changed the landscape. And there at Sylvie's, they're trying to bring beavers back. Take a listen to this. When fur trappers rid the land of beaver, the water-conserving beaver dams disappeared with them.
Here in the Sylvie's Valley, they trapped 200,000 beaver out of this valley.
What?
200,000 beaver, very well documented by Peter Skeen Ogden's journals. And that changed the hydrology of this entire piece of country.
So you can hear my shock there when he said 200,000 beavers, right? 200,000. That's crazy. And they are seeing the changes on Sylvie's Ranch itself. And by what they've done there is they have mimicked beaver dams. And what that does is it gives you more surface water. That in turn increases the groundwater supply. So they're seeing a healthier landscape simply because there's more water to be had there. That's not the only benefit. Also, it helps prevent erosion. You don't get the cut banks along creeks. Helps reduce flooding because suddenly you have a place to store the water. And it may even help to control or mitigate the impacts of wildfire because the land has more water on it. And they're trying to mimic this up in King County, Washington by encouraging people, if maybe not to bring beaver back, but to be able to live with beaver. Because beaver can be a nuisance if you're trying to grow trees. They cut them down to do their thing. Beavers got to figure it out. And up in King County anyway, Dan, they're trying to mimic that. I think it's a great idea.
That's awesome. Beavers know what they're doing. Hey, you can't see me, but we're both dressed pretty similarly tonight. We got black, dark on dark. You look good tonight, my man. Thank you. I appreciate you on a Friday.
Yeah,
all right. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, here's something we really think is worth your time. The Oregonian put together this great piece of one-on-one interviews with 15 essential workers in Portland, not to mention some really cool black and white portraits of them all. They talked to medical staff and grocery store clerks, mechanics, marijuana dispensary workers, even our own photojournalist Scott Williams. They asked everyone how work has changed for them, really, what they thought when they were classified as essential, and if they have any fears going into work every day. It's a really great read, so please be sure to check it out. All right, coming up when we come back, we're going to read a couple of comments. We're going to finish the story with a little wave from people around the state. We'll be back after this. Let's talk about some comments. I'm not going to read a ton of them. A lot of them are kind of the same. I think people get interested when we read some of the harsher emails on the show, and I addressed one tonight, and people kind of, I don't know, try to give us some credit for not bashing anybody back. But, you know, I can tell the difference between anger and passion, and we always are encouraging passionate emails into this show about the things that we're covering, the things that are going on in the state. We care about everything that we do, and we want to know that you care about it too. So please keep all of those coming, and thanks to everybody reaching out using the hashtag #HeyDan. Now we're going to leave you on this Friday night with something kind of cool in our area. We went up and down the state, talked to people all around all of the interstates to see how they were feeling as we, you know, can't really visit each other nowadays. So here's a little package. We hope you like it. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here on Monday.
Hi, I'm Nathan Sandberg, Vice Principal at Ontario High School here in Ontario, Oregon. As a community, we're staying home and staying healthy because we're in this together. How are you doing, Baker City?
Hi, I'm Mandy Clark from Baker City. We're here and we're safe. How about you, LeGrand?
Hi, this is Captain Lacey from LeGrand Fire Department. I just want to let you know we're all in this together. How about you, Pendleton?
Hi, I'm Erica Patton from Pendleton. We're going to write this thing out. How are things in the Dalles?
Hi, I'm Mayor Rich Mays from the beautiful city of the Dalles. We're staying home and we're staying strong. What's going on in Hood River?
Hey, this is Greg at Full Sail Brewing in Hood River. We encourage everybody to hang tight for now. Hopefully you are too. Troutdale?
This is Randy from Troutdale. We're home.
We're home.
We're home. Over to you, Portland.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrew in Portland. We're home, playing it safe. Let's hear it, Salem.
Hi, I'm Tom at the Elsinore Theater in the capital city. We are all in this together. Albany?
Hello from Albany. I'm Janet. We're staying put to stay together. Eugene, you're up.
Hi, I'm Canberra Ward from 91.9 KRVM in Eugene. We'll all get through this together. Off to you, Roseburg.
I'm Tammy Sanders. I am a native Roseburgian, and this is my dog Lola. We're doing what we can to stay hunkered in. How's everyone down south doing?
Hey, I'm Hillary. Grants Pass is home, and we're in this together. Take it away, Medford.
Hello from Medford. I'm Natalie. We're taking this seriously. Ashlyn, can you hear us?
Hi, this is Linda in Ashland. Count us in. From Ontario to Ashland. Oregon will get better together.